On May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American in space. However, 3 months earlier, NASA launched number 65 on a mission that helped pave the way for Shepard's momentous flight. Number 65 was a male chimpanzee born in 1957 in the French Cameroons in West Africa. After being captured by trappers, he was sent to a rare bird farm in Florida. In 1959, he was sold to the U.S. Air Force, who sent him to Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. There, he would take part in training to become an astrochimp. Nicknamed Ham by his handlers after Holloman Aerospace Medical Center, number 65 was one of 40 chimps chosen for the space program. While numerous animals had been launched into space by both Americans and Soviets as early as 1948, dogs, monkeys, mice, a rabbit, and even fruit flies, the test subjects had thus far been mere passengers. By the 1950s, before sending a human into the unknown, NASA wanted to conduct tests to find out if an astronaut would be able to perform motor tasks in space. Why were chimpanzees chosen, and what would they do that other animals did not? According to NASA's publication, This New Ocean, A History of Project Mercury, Ham paves the way. Intelligent and normally docile, the chimpanzee is a primate of sufficient size and sapience to provide a reasonable facsimile of human behavior. Its average response time to a given physical stimulus is 0.7 of a second, compared with a man's average of 0.5 of a second. Having the same organ placement and internal suspension as man, plus a long medical research background, the chimpanzee chosen to ride the Redstone and perform a lever-pulling chore throughout the mission should not only test out the life support systems, but prove that levers could be pulled during launch, weightlessness, and re-entry. The chimps were taught to pull levers in response to sound and light. If they reacted correctly within 5 seconds, they were rewarded with banana pellets. If not, they got a mild shock on the soles of their feet. The animals were also exposed to simulated G-forces and microgravity to prepare them for spaceflight, just like their human counterparts, the Mercury 7, who had been training for nearly 2 years. As tests proceeded, the group of would-be space travelers was whittled down to 18, and then 6, 4 females and 2 males. Ham was chosen as one of the finalists. On January 2, 1961, the 6 animals were moved from Holloman to Cape Canaveral, Florida, and separated into 2 groups. This was to avoid the spread of germs to all the chimps should one become ill. Mercury capsule mock-ups were built for both groups, and the chimps spent their days performing motor tasks during 29 training sessions, lasting until the 3rd week in January. Until the day before the scheduled launch date of January 31st, all 6 finalists were still in the running for the title of First Chimp in Space. Then, the decision had to be made about which one of them would go on the flight. James P. Henry of NASA's Space Task Group, STG, and John D. Mosley, the veterinarian from Holloman, would make the selection after the animals were given physical examinations and other tests. Ham, who was acting particularly feisty and in good humor, got the nod, and a female chimp would be selected as alternate. A History of Project Mercury details what happened next. At 19 hours before launch, these 2 animals were put on low-residue diets, fitted with biosensors, and checked out in their pressurized couch cabins. 7.5 hours before the flight, a second physical examination was given, followed by more sensor and psychomotor tests. About 4 hours before launch, the 2 chimps were suited up, placed in their couches, and brought aboard the transfer van, where their environmental control equipment was attached. The trailer truck arrived at the gantry alongside MR2, and there, an hour and a half before the scheduled launch time, the chimpanzee named Ham, still active and spirited, although encased in his biopack, boarded the elevator to meet his destiny. Ham rode into space on Mercury spacecraft number 5, boosted by a Mercury Redstone 2 rocket. He was strapped into a harness inside a pressurized capsule like the one below. This is the couch cabin, referred to above. The capsule would allow him to breathe if the cabin pressure in the spacecraft failed. The museum has 7 primate capsules, but none is currently on public display. The capsules are made of aluminum and fiberglass with 2 plexiglass windows. They measure 101.6 by 50.8 by 40.64 centimeters, 40 by 20 by 16 inches, and were manufactured by McDonnell Aircraft Corporation. During the flight, Ham's reaction to weightlessness and acceleration was tested by his performing the lever pulling tasks he had trained for. But the flight did not go completely as planned. In addition, there was a partial loss of air pressure while in space. But disaster was averted because of the pressurized capsule encasing Ham. After splashdown, water flooded the capsule, and had the rescue helicopter not arrived when it did, Ham might have drowned. Despite these difficulties, Ham seemed calm and in good spirits upon his return. He shook hands with the commander of the recovery ship and others, and readily accepted an apple. He did become agitated later when faced with the paparazzi, however, according to the post-flight report. Robert F. Wallace, an STG information officer on the scene, reported that Ham was excited when returned to Hangar S after his flight. Being unable to debrief his handlers, Ham alone knew at this time how grueling his flight had been. Flashbulbs and crowding newsmen made him highly agitated, and he snapped at several people. Later, when his handler led him back toward the capsule for pictures requested by the TV crews, Ham again became highly perturbed. It took 3 men to calm the astrochimp for the next round of pictures. A medical examination revealed Ham was slightly fatigued and dehydrated, but otherwise fine. Results of the tasks he performed showed his reaction times were only slightly slower than on Earth, proving that astronauts could perform activities effectively in space. But Ham's contribution to the future of human spaceflight was much more than that. Ham gained instant fame and was featured in numerous articles, on magazine covers, and on television many times. Documentaries were made about him. He lived at the Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington, D.C. until 1980, when he was transferred to the North Carolina Zoological Park in Asheboro. When he died in 1983, Ham's skeleton went to the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology for further investigation. His other remains were buried at the International Space Hall of Fame in Alamogordo, New Mexico. A second astrochimp, Enos, was launched into space in November 1961, this time entering the Earth's orbit. It was the precursor to John Glenn's orbital flight in 1962.